Well, hello everyone. Welcome to our third jam session of this season. And today we're talking about a new relationship with fear. And Sarah and I like this topic a lot because it's something that we all deal with as when we're making change in our lives, and when we're doing big transition, when we're stepping into new things. Fear is just a given. So let's just go ahead and dig in. So this is a great, so this is a quote that comes right out of Fire Dancer, but it's basically, you can be assured that if you are where you're going, that road, that pathway that's in front of you, that it's not going to be a straight line. And you can be assured that when you're making big changes in your life, that there is going to be, crazy curvy roads, and there's also going to be obstacles that are going to show up. And that's what we're going to dig in today. We are going to dig into how do you get to become friends with your fear? How do you get to know your fear? How do you get to even recognize it when it's there? Because sometimes we don't recognize fear when it's showing up for us. Like, I'm going to actually even share a story of my own where I didn't know that I wasn't even labeling it fear, but it was certainly fear. So that's where we're going to go today. And especially when you start getting called into something that's really big, really important in your life, when it's something that you are stepping into your own purpose, that's when fear is going to show up even in a bigger, brighter way. So let's just dig in and start looking at ways that you can become friends with your fear, and you can start to move through your fear, recognize it much more quickly, and move through it in a much faster way than if you don't even acknowledge that fear is there.
Fear. I'll tell you what, it's amazing how many times I am on a discovery call or strategy session with potential clients, and they come to you with this idea of, like, here's what I want. And it's usually a great, big, beautiful vision, but the more you start talking about that, opportunity, we know that there's talents and there's skills and abilities to help you get there. It's funny how often the conversation links you directly to that stuff that makes you have a little bit of a heartbeat that goes fast, 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 or sweaty palms, or that just pit in your stomach that makes you go, oh, I know that I can do that, but what in the heck is this? Like there's some kind of a resistance that I keep hitting up against, and what do we do with that? And so what I'd like to do is just name whatever that thing is that you might be feeling that resistance around, or that might be keeping you from, like, just bounding into that bigger vision that you have. Like, just what is it right now? Because I'll tell you, it definitely changes depending on where you're at and what's happening in your life at that particular time. And, as I was journaling this morning and preparing for this jam session, I was like, well, if somebody were to ask me to name my fear right now, what would I say? And it was funny, there were 4 things that came up. And so the first one was that my focus, and the fact that it's pretty much 100% always on and focused about work, is going to harm my relationships. And that it will harm the relationships with my family, with my children, with my friends, with my husband. And so that was an immediate one that popped up, and I was like, whoa. So I've got some fear around my impacts to my relationships. Another thing that came up immediately was that my ideas and my creativity might get stale. Now, that sometimes I feel like I've got all these beautiful things to bring into the world, and then, like, the other day I sat down and I was like, what do I write about? Is this a stale idea? Like, I don't know. Is anybody going to think this is cool? So that was one. Next one was that my luster is going to dull. And even as I wrote that one down, as it came out of my pen, I'm like, my luster? What the hell is that all about? But it was like, oh my gosh. There is this level of, well, things are shiny and beautiful now, but all good things have to come to an end, right? So there was this fear around, well, how long is it going to last that you're, doing well and on fire? And then the final thing that came up for me was that I'm not going to find time to do everything that I'm going to need to do to live this big vision. And so what I'd love for you to do is just to check in, what's that gut level fear that is showing up for you right now in the season of life that you're in? Take a moment and jot that down. And since this is a jam session where we all come together and collaborate and create community, it's important for us to name our fears and to give them voice, because when we give them voice, there's a different energy and a different thing that happens. It's a different quality of energy. And so we're going to open up the lines, and this is an opportunity for you to say, all right, here's where I'm at right now. So we'll get everybody opened up. And I'd love for you just to share. Everybody should be available if you would like to share. So Gretchen, Heather, Kristen, anybody?
Go ahead, Gretchen. You got your hand up.
Thank you.
Sure, nobody else has this fear, but the fear is, how the heck will I make a living doing what I want to do?
Right.
Ooh, that one just kind of made my arm pop up a little bit when you said it. It's like, oh yeah, that thing, yeah, that should just be a hobby. That shouldn't be something that makes me money, right? Oh, I think that's so real for a lot of people on the line today. Thank you for having the vulnerability to share that.
Yes, thank you.
Who else?
How about you, Heather? You're unmuted.
Okay, mine it's in the same line. It's all about my value. So it's the idea that I am bringing my wisdom and my experience, and it's hard to align a dollar amount for that. So I was putting together a program this morning, and I thought, well, I just want to see what this equates to dollar-wise. And I saw it, and I'm like, there's no way, that's not enough. And so it's having that confidence to say, my wisdom, my experience is what people want, and I'm worth it.
Charging what you're worth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's
and to be able to charge what you're worth, you've got that fear that's underneath. So no, you're not worth that. What are you thinking? Like, people are going to look at you and say, no way, Jose. Or, what does she think she's doing charging that for this? Oh, that is a real big one. Thank you so much for sharing, Heather.
Yeah. And you're selling the value. I just have to add this in there because I can't let it go. You are selling the value that they're going to get on the flip side of it, right, Heather? So think of it from that perspective. How's their life going to change?
Right.
We can follow up. We can follow up on that all after this call, but I can let it go.
Totally. So we've got a comment that came in from Kristen. She's working at the house, so she's got some background noise. But she shared that her fear is that, will I be able to discard the silly stuff? Others have more. Others decorate better. Others are more capable each day, and appreciate the good stuff that I have to offer. Oh, yeah. Especially in this world, like, there's such a comparison everywhere you go, right? They have more.
And they make that from a society perspective. I mean, you could just, you can flip television on and it's always this competing kind of thing, right? Versus being in abundance. So I totally get that. I totally can see where that pops up. Thank you for sharing.
Anybody else? It's your chance.
Okay.
Well, let's talk about what some of those common fears are. If you look, holistically at all of the science or what people tell you, it's pretty interesting. And as you look at this list, I bet you're going to be like, oh yeah, I've felt that one before. So I won't succeed, right? I'm afraid that maybe I will succeed. And when I remember several years ago when I saw this list, that I'm afraid of being successful. I was like, oh, that's funny. But now I totally get it. It's like, oh my gosh, if I am successful, then that opens up a whole nother layer of stuff that I am going to need to deal with. Like, can I do that? Oh my God, what if I'm successful? Right? The third one, I'm just too old. Right? I was talking to my husband about this the other day and about, the career path that he sees unfolding. And he's like, I have to stay where I'm at. I have to continue being a trainer because this is the invested time that I've put in for the past so many years, right? And so it's too late for me. I was like, wait a minute, that's just fear talking, right? So maybe that's you. Maybe you're worried about the finances of it all, right? I think that we've already heard elements of that one. I'm like, could I really make a living, doing what I love and making enough money? The second to last bullet that you see right there is one that Cammie and I deal with often with clients.
A lot.
we do a lot of this fabulous work and people are ready to step out, and then there's this moment of pause of, oh, actually maybe I'm going to wait and let me get my certificate first before I hang my shingle. Or let me go and, I want to be perfect before things launch, and so I need to go and learn a little bit more. I don't have enough experience quite yet.
Yeah, that's a really big one. That one shows up all the time. And it's like you guys have been working your whole life to get to where you are today. You have all kinds of experiences. Start getting out and moving into it, feeling into it.
Right. So then get curious, like, is it really that I need more education, or is it that this is a legit fear that I need to, to recognize and move through? And then finally,
just one thing to add on to that is that know that investment in learning is a good thing. Just don't let it stop you from stepping forward into the next step of it. If you're investing in learning, that's always a good thing. I totally believe in that. But it's well, I'll do what I'm going to do after I do the learning. You guys have got experiences today and now and ready to step into it.
Yeah, you can do both.
Yes.
And then finally, this is one that people will listen to, right? Everybody else, the naysayers or the family members or the, gosh, I don't think that they're going to get why I'm doing what I'm doing, right? I'm just really going to worry about how others are going to perceive this choice that I've made. After all, I have this reputation to uphold, and you don't want somebody to look at you and say, what in the hell is she thinking? Right? So those are just some of the common ones. Maybe you resonate with those, maybe you don't. But at the end of the day, fear shows up in several different ways. And if you haven't read Playing Big by author Tara Moore, please put it on your list. She actually does a great audio version of this too. So if those of you are finding yourselves in the car or listening to podcasts or something, download this puppy because it's a game changer. And she shares a lot of ideas around fear. And the more you resonate with your own purpose, right? You step onto that stuff that you were born to do, the bigger the fear is that you're going to experience. And so once you've found that clarity of purpose and you begin to step into those gifts that you're meant to deliver into the world, fear is going to show up in a bigger and a sometimes pretentious way. And so, Kimmy, I know that when you got into your second year of business, you had some fear that you were facing, and you know that you found your purpose in life, but tell us a little bit more about what was happening at that particular time.
Yeah, so my business had actually kicked off really well in the first year. The cash flow was happening. Year two rolled around and the cash flow started to slow down a little bit. And I was worried, right? Because I had found, number one, what I love to do. Number two, I was pretty damn sure that that was my purpose in my life. And what if this didn't sustain me, right? So I had this little bit of fear that was showing up. But here's the deal, is I wasn't actually even recognizing it as fear. I was just feeling this tension in my body. I wasn't putting the word fear on it because number one, I very much believe in the power of positive thinking, but that positive thinking can really, positive thinking is absolutely a good thing for us. But when we ignore what's happening in our body, it just saying, I'm pushing it down. I'm not going to listen to this. And I'll tell you the story how I actually discovered this in just a moment. But, right. I was pushing it down because I knew what I was supposed to be doing in my life. I was ready to step out into it. But there was something in my body that was really playing some head games with me. So I'll share more about that in just a sec.
Right. And I think the key here is that we can either decide to push it down mm-hmm. and like ignore it or pretend that it isn't there, or we can just deal head on with it. And so we're going to talk today about obviously the dealing with head on. But when you push down, push down, push down, you wonder where the hell is it going to go?
Right.
But where is it going to show up? Where is it going to manifest? And it's not really a beautiful thing when you do that. And so when we're talking with people, we hear, people will recognize their fear sometimes. They're like, oh yeah, I just need to get over it. That's not what it's about. Yeah. And so in Tara's book, she talks about two different types of fear. And this is a really cool thing to get curious around, because once we notice, okay, there's some fear, then we can say, okay, is this kind of fear or is it this kind of fear? So the first one is pahad, and it's the fear of imagined possibilities that we make up in our own mind. I'm really good at this, FYI. Right? It's often overreactive and originates from the reptilian brain that protected us way back in the day, right, from that physical harm. In most circumstances, most of the time, right, there is no physical risk, though.
We don't have any lions chasing after us, or
no. So it's the emotional risk that's taking over and that we're responding to, and it's the fight or flight mode that we're just hardwired into, right? And that when we're getting triggered and our emotions are like, ah, it's like, oh, there you are. Right? And so pahad tries to get us to avoid potential danger without recognizing the possibilities of growth, right? Because it almost blinds us to the potential that there could be some good stuff hanging out where this fear is. And so we, in our minds, think of the most disastrous possibility that could ever be imagined, a worst-case scenario. And instead of saying, okay, this is the worst case, what's the most likely case, we just go and think head-on, head-first, worst-case scenario. We feel tightness in our bodies and restriction in that response to the pahad fear. Right? So that's the one kind. Now, we look at the kind of fun fear. That's how I like to think of it. And that's yara. And yara is the type of fear that we experience when we inhabit a larger space, right? When we're tapping into those passions and we're expanding and moving into our dreams, right? It provides some energy, right? More energy than we normally experience, and it sometimes gives you a sense of awe. Whoa. Right? And it's aligned to something in our lives and comes from our soul. Right? And it often shows up when we're being really vulnerable and courageous. Right? And so as you're saying, here's my offer, world. I'm standing in my badassery. Woo, here she comes. You're like, oh, hi, Yara. There you are. Whoa. Right? And so she shows up when we're honoring our perfect truth. So in Yara, we're excited and we're uplifted in our bodies. Right? It's a different than that constraint that we might feel with the pahad. And while we manifest this nervous energy sometimes, Yara is this electric.
It's a jazzy energy. It's just
fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it moves us where pahad constricts us. So both of these types of fear are uncomfortable, right? But it's learning to recognize the type of fear that you're experiencing that's going to help you move through that fear more quickly. And frankly, with greater grace and just understanding, and less of that inner critic coming up and saying, "Oh, you just don't know what the heck's going on."
Yeah, and I think it's that constricting or that expansive energy. If it feels like you're stepping up onto something that is bigger than you, there's a really good chance you're in the yara. And chances of it being in the pahad are, sometimes fear, it can be a really good thing from the perspective of it keeps us safe. So another way to think about this is that thing that you're fearful of going to expand your life? Is it something that, is worthwhile stepping into that's there on the flip side? Or is it just something that is crazy and really doesn't have an outcome on the outside of it? I mean, I'm just going to use one as an example here because this is mine, and this may not be your example. This may be totally your thing. But I have no desire to jump out of a perfectly good plane. And
I do.
well, so there, Sarah's got the desire to do that. I don't have that desire. And for me, it's like, what's it gonna get me on the flip side? There's not a big enough a reward on the flip side of that for me to say, yes, I want to do this. For Sarah, on the flip side, it may be that all of the exhilaration that comes along with that is exactly what she wants to have. And so the outcome of what that could be for her could be worthwhile taking that kind of a risk. So, that's a way that you can kind of play in that.
That's right. And I love Yara. I think about like the the fear that I feel before I step out onto a big stage.
Yes.
Right? And it's just like, oh my God, my heart is pounding and I've got that nervous, like, oh, but it just feels good.
And then you get off.
Into it, you're just like, damn, that was amazing.
Yeah, exactly. As soon as you get off it, you're like, okay, yes, that was awesome. That was what I was supposed to be doing. So that's how you play into these two different fears.
It didn't boo me. I didn't die. It was awesome.
Yeah.
All of that.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you a story here, and this is a story, and I kind of alluded to this a moment ago, but this was a story when it was early in my business, and I was having, this concern, and I got an invite to go out to one of our girlfriends we were going to do some equine guided coaching for each other, and so it was a really windy day that day. And here on the Colorado plains, wind's blowing like 70 miles an hour, and I go into the round pen with a horse. And my friend Lynn is on the outside of the pen, and she's coaching me, and she says, and I didn't really know what I even wanted to speak about that day. I was like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what's bubbling up for me. So go out there. She says, just go out there and see what comes up for you. And we're standing in the wind, and the horse and I are standing next to each other, and we're leaning into the wind for a long period of time. And Lynn finally says to me, she says, I noticed the two of you are really leaning into the wind. What are you leaning into in your life right now that, you're really pushing against? And I stopped, and I kind of settled for a moment. I said, well, I'm really pushing my business. This is important to me. And she sat there for a moment. She's very, very intuitive. And she says, I'm sensing a little bit of fear. And I was like, oh no, I don't have fear. I'm staying in the positive. I've got to keep a positive mindset about where I'm going, what I'm bringing into my life. This is all about staying positive. And she said, and she pushed a little bit harder on that, and I said, and all of a sudden the tears start coming, and she's like, what's bringing the tears up? And I said, well, I am afraid. I'm afraid. She says, what are you afraid of? And I said, well, I'm afraid of that this business isn't going to work that I love, that I figured out that I want to do this, and I want to, this is my purpose in my life, and this is where I want to be going. And so she just let me go with this, and it flowed very quickly from me at that point, and I'm crying, and I'm like, all the things that go along with this, just acknowledging that yes, I do have some fear around this, and this is what it feels like. She says, okay, I want you to go and I want you to write. I said, okay, I'll go write. And I was in the midst of writing my pony pondering inspiration cards that day, at that time in my life. And so I went home and I wrote this card. So this is about really looking into the eyes of fear and getting to know the fear and not pushing it down and not hushing that fear. Getting to know the fear so that you can move through it and feeling it in your body. And so this is probably one of my most popular cards that came from that day in the round pen with the horse, which I didn't even mention this. It was such a windy day. The horse that I was in the round pen with was named Windy Day. And so this was my own learning that you have to embrace your fear. You have to learn to love your fear. And that's why I think this is such an important topic, because we see this so often with our clients. And guess what? Always, as long as you are growing and expanding in your life and your business and stepping into something new, fear is going to show up. So it's really about learning to tolerate the sensation of fear. It's learning to acknowledge when it does show up so that you can become friends with it then, and then step forward into it and move forward in a much more quick way, versus what was happening for me in that year 2 of my business several years ago was I was getting stuck. I was staying there, and I was letting all of those energies just gobble up my body, which in turn was impacting the energy that I was putting out into the world. So it's that ability to really be able to step back, recognize it, tolerate the sensation, and then start to learn to move through it and recognize that the fear can be a good thing for us, and it can really help us open up our journeys in ways that we want to. So that is my first tip here on fear is really to become friends with our fear. Wrap love around fear. That fear and love, they can't exist together. And so if you're wrapping love around your fear and you're saying, you know what, I recognize that you're there. I know that this is a scary step, but guess what? We've got this. We're going to move forward. So really learn to name your fear. So that's starting that, what you did early on in our call today is naming our fear. That's the first step so that you can move into just wrapping love around the fear that you have. So think about back to what you wrote down early on and just extend a little love around it right now. Be gentle with yourself on it. Love on yourself for the fear that's there. It's a normal thing, and just naming it and starting to love on it can help you move through it much more quickly. So there's number one.
Love on that fear for trying to keep you safe.
That's
and then
right.
You say to that fear,
yeah.
Well, that's some other ideas. But before you do that, this second step is really powerful. Right? Our just natural reaction to fear in our bodies is something that we can really amplify when we just put intentional effort around it. Right? So our body-based tools mean doing something that's physical with our bodies or to our bodies to address the fear. So if you're feeling that constriction, then what can you do to just get up and go for a walk or a run? Or one of Cami and I's favorites, just get on the mat, go to a yoga class, or just do yoga in your living room. Right? Practice breath, slowing your breath, taking deep, intentional, and focused breaths. I was listening to somebody last week, and they're like, the power of 10 breaths is transformational. So if you could just give yourself that opportunity to breathe in and out 10 times, that is enough to shift things, right? Our bodies are amazing vehicles and huge sources of wisdom and ultimate power for us when we tap into it, right? So merely tuning into what we're physically feeling in our bodies is going to tell us a lot about the fear, right? Like we've already talked. So scan your body section by section, starting in your toes. Then you move to your arches, to your ankles, up through your legs, your calves, your hamstrings, into your hips. And our hips, of course, where we love to carry lots of emotion. Into your core, all the way up through your chest and that expansiveness. Your shoulders, and all the way up through, right? And you know which parts feel light, which parts feel heavy. I know that when I start having fear around my business, I oftentimes feel constriction around my throat, right? Because that's my voice and that ability to, share your message with the world and ask for money and all of those things that go with it.
Yeah.
So I oftentimes would feel just like a weight of an elephant sitting here, or just that constriction, like I can't say it. Other times I feel it heavy on my heart, right? Like there's just some kind of a compression that's happening there. And so you give yourself that opportunity to just check in and you scan. And where are you fearing right now in this present situation? Where are you holding on to it? Maybe it's in your shoulders. I have a friend that has a recurring migraines. And she's just now she's making some links to how her fear and what's going on in her mental life is really impacting her physical body, and her fear is showing up as migraines. I thought that's just really, really fascinating, right? And so that's just one example. The butterflies that happen in your belly, that's a whole nother example of that fear, right? And so our hip joints might have emotions. It might be our minds, in our head. It might be in your fingers. I mean, wherever it is, these are just a few examples. Everybody's different. Just tune in and notice. And so learn to do this scan regularly in different situations. And you're going to begin to identify how your body responds to fear and other emotions. What feels normal, what feels new, what feels off. So simply being curious and aware without judgment, and that's the key, right? No judgment, can help you move through and beyond fear. And I'll tell you, I've got a really real example of how fear showed up in my body, and I wasn't listening, right? I had the heart palpitations. I was in a really critical point of a relationship in my life when I lived in Arizona, and this was probably, 9 years ago. And I knew that the relationship that I was in needed to change, but I had so much fear around what would happen if I actually pulled the trigger and changed the relationship that I wasn't moving forward. And I started noticing like there would be times where my heart would race when I'd be sitting at work or I'd be driving home and I was just like, whatever, my heart's just being funny today, and I would justify and judge why it was happening. And then one day I went into a Subway and I walked in and I smelled all the bread and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, wow, that's weird. I feel like I need to sit outside. And so I walked outside and I immediately hit the ground. I passed out. My body took over with the fear that I was feeling and said, you cannot ignore this any longer. And after that moment, I woke up, I'm like, all right, things have got to change. Fear's talking to me and I can't keep pushing it down.
Yeah.
It wasn't a healthy thing.
Yeah.
So there you go. Bodies are beautiful. Listen.
They are. They tell us so much if we just tune in and we get to know and pay attention to what's normal, what's not normal, and where is it showing up for us. It can tell us so much. So this is number 3, and I think this is really an important one. When you are working from the very essence of who you are, if you have done the work to know what your strengths and your passions and your values are and who you are at your very essence, and you get clear about how you want to make a difference in the world, you are standing on a different foundation than most people in our world are standing on. Most people don't know that. If you know that, if you know what your purpose is in this life and how your gifts are meant to matter, I can tell you, you can move through a lot more fear than if you don't know that, because you don't have that foundation. You're missing it. It gives you a sense of courage. It gives you a sense of trust that, yes, this is the journey I'm supposed to be on. This is what I'm supposed to be delivering in the world. And that's how you're meant to matter. When you know that sense of, I can move through this, I can step into these bigger callings, these bigger things that I am being pushed into doing, pulled into doing, that you'll know you can trust it in a much bigger way. And so you'll take bigger, courageous steps with that. So I think that's a good one. And you all are doing this work. So I just want you to recognize the benefit of that foundational work can really help you move through the fear in as you move into your what's next.
That's right. And your next thing that pops up is going to have its whole other host of fear. And, fear is a wonderful shapeshifter. Mm-hmm. And so once you've tackled this one fear, you've moved through it, just know that another one's going to be like, oh, yeah. Hi. And so you're going to move that process along. And so I think that number 4 is really important, right? You follow the fear through the end. That you're going to keep showing up and keep knowing that when I face where this fear is, that's where the magic happens. And one of my favorite things to do when I start getting in that mind trap of, oh, here's all the crappy stuff that's going to happen, right? And you start, thinking of the worst case scenarios. Then I like to ask myself, okay, so what if that happened? What would you do? And whatever pops up with the, okay, here's what I would do, and say, okay, and then what? What would you do after that? And then write down whatever that next thing is, and then say, okay, after that thing happens, then what would you do after that? And you just keep drilling down. It was like, so what? So what? So what? So what would you do? You follow that through until the friggin' end, and it's like, oh, well, that place where I ended up, this bottom, way that I followed this all the way down, I could totally deal with that. Yeah. Right? Whatever the scenario was, the so what, I'm a badass. I could deal with this. Yeah. And if I wasn't feeling equipped to deal with it, I know somebody who could help me. Or I have some way that I can move, because this just sitting here staying stuck stuff isn't very fun, and it isn't serving anybody, most particularly yourself. Yeah. So follow that puppy through.
Yeah, I had a good example on that one where I was, and I think I've shared with many of you, that there was a time where I was so afraid of public speaking, right? And when I started going through the whole series of, well, what would happen? So what might happen? Well, I might fall when I'm getting onto the stage. So what? What would happen then? Well, everybody would probably run up to the stage and say, are you okay? And I'd be like, okay, yeah, I guess I am okay. I'd pull myself back up and I'd stand up and I'd be embarrassed for a moment. And so then you think about what's next of that. And I'd probably stumble a little bit as I'm getting started, you know, getting the words out of my mouth. But then I would get into a flow, and then it would be okay. And then I would have, eventually it was like at the end of the day, it was like, I can deal with all those things because I have this bigger calling out there that's calling me to do something more, to take my voice out in a bigger way. And by God, you got to get over this. And so that was how I got through that, was by playing this game. So.
Right. Yeah. So follow that puppy through the end.
Yes.
And make magic happen.
Yeah. Right. So we want to hear from you guys. What do you guys do when you notice fear and showing up for you? What are some of the things that are there for you? What have you seen? Let's just raise your hand up and share some of your wisdom as well. What's worked?
I'm like really curious to hear from you, Heather. And you know, when you start having that value piece pop up, like, okay, you're going to charge this kind of a thing. What's going to help you charge what you're worth versus discount, and then, you know, have to deal with that whole thing?
There you go. You're muted now.
Oh, sorry. I also learned the lesson that I gave some work away for free last year, and so it was valued at nothing. And so I spent a whole day with somebody, and then I asked her to just respond to 3 questions. It would have taken maybe 5 minutes. And she never did. And I asked her a few times to do it, and the experience was positive. But because I never charged anything, it was, well, why would she spend any time? Clearly so it's so important to charge. And so what I did for today, when it was feeling like, that's not enough, I thought, okay, well, think about not only the time or the wisdom that I'm spending with them, but the time I'm putting things together, the FaceTime, the time that's happening before the FaceTime. And think about the materials that I'm sharing that can't be found in other places. And so there should be a material cost. It's not just the hours in the day. And so it all makes me stressed, so then I do breathing exercises. I love, Sarah, you mentioned, just 10 deep breaths. And one that I like to do is I breathe in for 4 seconds. I imagine a square. So I breathe in for 4 seconds, that's one leg. Then I hold for 4 seconds, that's the next one. I breathe out for 4 seconds, and then I hold. And then that calms me down and helps me. And it's the self-affirmations that help me also. I'm worth this. Come on. This is important, and it's going to make a difference. But still, I have the fear, but it helps.
Right. I love that idea of the box, Heather. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah,
so thank you so much for sharing that. That's so cool. And the power of self-affirmation, I think, is really, really beautiful, and something that I think we've talked about in the past is, the power of your journal. And like that's one of the places that I love to do affirmations, and writing down all of those, really beautiful inner mentor type thoughts, those really empowering beliefs, and saying, here's where I want my attention to go. And yeah, I am worth it. I love that. So
totally.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Caroline sent us a...
Yeah, let's see if we can't unmute her. Hold on.
Try it.
Yeah, I can't unmute you for some reason, Carolyn. But go ahead, Sarah, what she said.
A power pose. A power pose. I imagine this like a hands on the hips, like I'm getting some attitude, a power pose, arms in the air, and repeat positive affirmations while remembering when I have succeeded before. Oh, yes. Oh my God, Caroline, I love that piece of remembering the fact that you've been successful in the past, right? Because when you can remind your body of like, oh, I actually have won before, then it brings that memory back. It's just your cell level. It reminds your mind of like, oh my God, I am awesome. And I've done it once, I can replicate that baby again. Oh, so powerful.
That's an important one. Really important one. Let's see who else we have. Anyone else have one that they want to share? Alice, I'd love to hear from you. You always have such good wisdom. Let's hear. I can't unmute you either. There you go. You're open now.
Well, yeah, here I am. Thinking about ways that I deal with fear in a positive way. they're very subtle. I think walking is huge for me, and it changes. You know, if I've got fear going on, I've got a set going on in myself that I need to go through, and if I'm walking, then it creates that movement, and my environment changes, so my setting is changing.
There you go.
And I think that loops things up.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like what you just said there too. I mean, I think the walking, certainly it's like you're moving things, but something that you said that really tagged it for me was change your environment. If, you know, and there's so much we can do to change our environment from, you know, changing the room that you're in, changing the space that you work in on a regular basis, change your space around, do something different in your space. All of those things can really help. Yeah, a candle.
I think it's sometimes like just the changing of lighting candle, like this one obviously isn't lit, but just being able to put this in view where there's that flame. Like fire is a powerful thing for me, right? And it shifts my attention and brings new energy in. And so just a small thing like that can, you know, if you can't leave your office or you can't leave your house or something, you know, you can do small shifts like that. So I love that reminder of the environment too, you guys. So cool.
And you know what that brings up for me too is even like essential oils. If you want to have a powerful day, choose an essential oil that is really going to jazz you. You know, so sometimes we want a lavender day. Some days we want that fiery day. So you're choosing. One that I use sometimes when I really want a fiery day is called Valor. It's a Young Living, and it's called Valor. And so when I really want to show up in all my strength, put a little Valor on that day, or whatever it is that might you know, really jazz you up. That gives you anything that we can do from our senses perspective, whether it's the smelling, the hearing, it could be the music that we listen to. You know, we can put on some real power music that jazzes that energy through us. So all of, you know, if you're engaging your senses, that's a great way for it.
Yes. Does anybody feel good when to move through fear, just to like pick up the phone and talk to your girlfriend and say, oh my God, I'm so scared about this thing? And just like for the fact that you picked up the phone and told somebody about it, and that doesn't seem so scary. You're like, oh, okay.
It does, because it moves it, right? It moves it. I can promise you I've called Sarah before with something. I was like, oh my God, you won't believe.
Yeah, I love it when your friends are like, and you really think that's going to happen? You're like, probably not.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all you needed to hear. Anybody else that can join the mic and offer a contribution to this beautiful community today? Right, well, we always have the syzygy circle. So if you hang up at today's, yay, thank you, Gretchen.
I don't know, that's so much different, but you're talking about changing your environment, but definitely shifting focus. Best thing is Starry Night Sky, if available, because it just really puts everything in perspective.
Right.
You know, big tree taller than me works equally well, but if I'm in the office, even, you know, grabbing my little office plant and examining how detailed one of the leaves is also will work.
Yeah.
They all are the same. They're serene, unconcerned about what's going on with me, and that helps me to put it in perspective.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's really brilliant. What also came to mind as you said that was the ocean, because I'm such an ocean. You know, you get to the ocean and you see how small you really are compared to the rest of the universe around us. But it is the wonder, it is the nature, it is, you know, just being in awe of what's here all around us. So that's a brilliant one. I love it. Thank you.
You guys are so wise. I love it. Thank you for sharing.
Totally.
Jamming out a little with us about a topic that touches each and every one of us.
Right. Right. And this is, our reading recommendation is really around this Marianne Williamson poem, which I love. And our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. As we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. We are liberated from our own fear. Our presence automatically liberates others. So I love that line particularly. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? So a really simple one. So you can find this poem all over the place, hanging on your wall. It's a good one. And then we always offer up a jam on TED. And this is a great one. This Karen Thompson Walker, What Fear Can Teach Us. So what if we change the way we look at fear? What if we looked at it as an amazing act of the imagination? How we tune into our stories tells that we tell within our mind, what plots and twists and turns and the suspense that comes up, what's going to happen next. All of those stories that we can tell over and over in our mind can give us good judgment or it can give us bad judgment. And she gives a really good example in this video about how some people took some different examples and let the big dramatic story build up and actually made a wrong choice. So it's a good video to really watch. And she encourages us to learn to read our fears with a scientific mind versus that most lucid visual, like, oh my God, what could happen, right? So it's definitely a great one to spend a little time in. I think it's only, I don't know, 12 minutes or something long. So it's a good one to watch.
Right. And while we transition to the next slide, there's two comments that came in that I just have to share. London said that she tries to identify the silver linings when it comes to fear, and I think that's so powerful. I'm choosing to put my attention on the things that are really beautiful about the situation, because there's always at least something.
Yes, that's a beautiful.
And then Carolyn, you're so cute. She says, I always love what Gretchen shares. Or I always love Gretchen's ideas. She makes me smile. So a little love fest going on.
Yay, I like that.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Okay, so
let's keep the love going. We've got more jams coming up, Cammie. What's next?
We've got all kinds of juicy things this year, and I'm so excited about this whole series because we decided we were getting bold this year. And next month we're going to really be talking about awakening that inner feminine in you and really letting that goddess in you, that yin. I'm all about yin rising, baby. It's like let's get our feminine energy out into the world and really share the leadership that you are each bringing into the world in your own unique way. So that's going to be a great one. May is going to be mindfulness with Rita, and for those of you who have met Rita, you know her magic. For those of you who are new to Rita, you know that she's really good about helping us slow down that busy mind that we have going on all the time and really slow down and learn to be mindful in our life so that we can take it and apply it in real meaningful ways. You know, there's a lot of mindfulness, go teach you to meditate kind of thing, but she actually shows you how to do it and do it in real life and show up in real life with it. So whether it's, you know, at work or wherever it is, how do you be more mindful in your life? In June, we have our Sensual Sexual You, which is got both Sarah and I like, what the hell are we going to talk about? But we've got stuff bubbling, and we're going to be sharing it with you. And so that's a really...
Talk about some Urana going right there.
Exactly, right? We will be talking about a well life in July. And by the way, Heather, I think we need to chat about that.
Yes, I had you in mind, by the way, when we talked about this. So plant that seed.
Yeah, so mark that date and let's chat here soon. Vulnerable conversations, mindset mastery. How do you just master that mind, that mind that is always going for us, and how do you keep yourself in that positive flowing way? The magic of ritual, which is always fabulous, and your creative genius. How do you really innovate the creativity in you? So that will be the November one, the final one for the year. So thanks for showing up today and engaging, and I look forward to hearing stories back from you on what, you know, where you're applying this and where you're making real decisions and becoming friends with your fear and the journeys that you're each on.
That's right. And just remember that the time is now to make those big, bold declarations that you're going to have a different relationship with fear. And the world's waiting for you to just shine even brighter, and we wish you the best, and we're always here to support you. If you need something, don't hesitate to reach out to the Client Syzygy Circle, and thank you so much.
Bye. Love you all. See you later.
Okay. Thank you.